Welcome to CGU, Christian Gamers Union. My name is Trust in Christ, and today we're going to continue where we left off, and we're going to read Judges chapter 7 and 8, covering the Battle of Gideon, which was pretty much the original story of the 300. The 300 soldiers that God chose to deliver Israel out of captivity through the hands of Gideon. So let us get started. Judges chapter 7, and as we see, God commanded, Gideon to overthrow this idol before the men, and he did it in the break of night. And guess what? God allowed it to be overthrown, and Gideon was, accused and was about to be executed. But guess what happened? What happened was, pretty much no man could stand before him, and God allowed that idol to be overthrown, and Gideon commanded his men to overthrow the gods and the people that were oppressing them. So let's continue where we left off in chapter 7, verse number 1. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Herod, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them, by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, my own hands have saved me. Now therefore go to proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from the Mount Gilead. And there return of the 20 and 2,000, and there remain 10,000. So out of all the battle-ready men, that were within Israel, so these are men that are aged of 20 and older. There were 22,000, and guess what? 11,000 left, and there were 10,000 men left. So over half the fighting population returned within Israel, because guess what? God only wanted men that were bold of strength and not afraid. So 10,000 remained. Verse number 4. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. Bring them down unto the water, and I will try them for thee. And it shall be that of whom I say unto thee, this shall go with thee, the same shall go with thee. And of whomsoever I say unto thee, this shall not go with thee, the same shall not go. So he brought down the people unto the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, everyone that lappeth the water with his tongue, as a dog lappeth, shall thou set by himself. Likewise, everyone that boweth down upon his knees to drink. And then the number of them that lapped, putting their hands to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed upon their knees to drink water. And the Lord said unto Gideon, by 300 men that laugh will I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thine hand. And let all the other people go, every man unto the place. So the people took the victuals in their hands, in their tongues. And he sent all the rest of Israel, every man unto his tent, and retained those 300 men, and the host of Midian was beneath him in the valley. And it came to pass, the same night, that the Lord said unto him, arise, get thee down unto the host, for I have delivered it unto in thy hands. But if thou fear to go down, thou with Pharaoh, thy servant, down to the host, that thou shalt hear what they say, And go afterwards shall thy hands be strengthened to go down unto the host. Then they went with Pharaoh his servant unto the outside of the armed men that were in the host, and the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay alone in the valley like grasshoppers. For a multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand of the seaside for the multitude. And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow, and said, Behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of Midian, and came unto a tent, and smote it, that it fell. And it overturned, that the tent lay alone. And his fellow servant, answered and said, This is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. For into his hand God delivered Midian and all the host. And it was so, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned into the host of Israel, and said, Arise, for the Lord hath delivered into your hand the host of Midian. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies. And he put a trumpet in every man's hand, with empty pitchers, lamps within the pitchers. And the host said unto them, Look upon me, and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outside of the camp, it shall be that as I do, so shall ye do. So this wasn't your typical armed march of weapons. These men were unarmed, with trumpets marching. And not only that, this went from a company of 22,000 to 10,000 to those that lapped and wouldn't, cup the waters in their hand. They licked the water like dogs, and God chose 300 men that were not afraid to go down into battle of Midian. And not only that, they marched, with God's command, which is the Lord of hosts, which is what that is, the army of God, into this land of Midian. And let's see what happens. Verse 18. When I blow with a trumpet, I and all that are with me, then blow ye the trumpet, also on every side of all the camp, and say, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon. So Gideon and the 300 men that were with him came unto the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, and that had newly set the watch, and they blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers that were in their hands. And it's pretty much similar to what happened with Joshua in the battle of Jericho, where they surrounded the city, the walls of Jericho, blowing the trumpet for those 7 days, and the walls came tumbling down. Similar story. And pretty much this is God showing that pretty much the number don't matter to me. I'm going to win this battle. I can use 1 man, I can use 300, I can use 3,000. I don't need the power of might and soldiers and troops or military prestige to fight your battle. For I am the Lord your God. You guys rebelled against me. You guys disobeyed me. You guys have turned unto other idols. But I, God, not Luke, the Lord of hosts, the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, will overthrow this big, valiant city and pretty much deliver them into your hands. Let's look at verse 20. And the 3 companies blew the trumpets and brake their pitchers, and held the lamps in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands, to blow withal. And they cried, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon. And they stood every man in his place round about the camp, and all the host ran and cried and fled. So when they did this on all the sides of Gideon, the three companies that, blew their horns and pitched their tents. The man fled. And the 300 blew the trumpets and set every man's sword against his fellows, even throughout all the host. And the host fled into Beth Shittim and Zarephath to the border of El Ben Molah and Tabeth. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali, and out of Asher, and out of Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mount of Ephraim, saying, Come down against the Midianites, and take before them the waters of Bethborah and Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together, and took the waters out to Bethborah and Jordan, and took two princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb, and slew Oreb, and upon the rocks of Oreb, and Zeb slew at the winepress of Zeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon in the other side of Jericho. So pretty much this impossible task of conquering this city was done by God and Gideon. And the man of Ephraim said unto him, Why hast thou served us, that thou hast called us not, when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites? And when they chid with him sharply, he said unto him, What have I now done in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. And was I able to do in comparison of you? Then their anger was abated towards him when he had said that. And Gideon came to Jordan and passed over, he and the 300 men that were with them, faint yet pursuing them. And he said unto the men of Succoth, Give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me. For they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian. And the princes of Succoth said, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thy hands, that we should give bread unto thine army? And Gideon said, Therefore, when the Lord have delivered Zebah and the Zalmunna into my hand, I will tear you your flesh with thorns of the wilderness and of the briars. And he went up thence to Punah, and spake unto them likewise, and the men of Punah answered him as the men of Succoth had answered him. And he spake unto the men of Punah, saying, When I come again in peace, I'll break down this tower. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Kakor, and the host of them were 15,000 men, all that were left of all the hosts of the children of the east. For there fell 120,000 men that drew sword. And Gideon went up by the way of them that dwelt in tents on the east of Nobah and of Jobah, and smote the host, for that the host was secure. And when Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued after them, and took two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and discomfited all the host. So he got rid of and distressed all of their armies. And Gideon and the son of Joash returned from battle before the sun was up, and caught a young man of Succoth, and inquired of him, and described unto him the princes of Succoth and the elders thereof, even 17 men. And he came unto the men of Succoth and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom ye did upbraid me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thy hand, that we should give bread unto thy men that are weary? And he took the elders of the city, and thorns of the wilderness, and briars with them, and taught the men of Succoth. And he beat down the tower of Funah, and slew the men of that city. Then said unto Zebah and to Zalmunna, What manner of men were they whom ye slew at Tabor? And they answered, As thou art, so were they. Each one resembled the children of the king. So they were men of nobility. And he said, They were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. As the Lord liveth, if ye have saved them alive, I will not slay you. And he said unto Jether, the firstborn, Up and slay them, that the youth draw not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth. And Zebah and Zalmunna said, Arise, thou, and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna, and took away the ornaments that were in his camel necks. Then the men of Israel said unto Gideon, Rule thou over us, both thou and thy son, and thy son's sons also. So you and your generation, you will be our judge. For thou hast delivered us from the hands of Midian. And Gideon said unto them, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. Neither shall my son rule over you, the Lord shall rule over you. And Gideon said unto them, I would desire and request of you that you will give me every man his earrings for his prey. For they have golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. And Ishmaelites, we got to remember, Ishmaelites are the tribe that comes from Ishmael, as Abraham's sons. So that's where their lineage of Gideon traces back to the Midianites. All right. And they answered, We willingly give them. And they spread a garment and did cast therein every man the earrings of his prey. And the weight of the golden earrings he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold. That's a lot. Beside the chains that were around the camels' necks. And Gideon made an ephod thereof, and put in his city, even the Ophrah, and all of Israel went thither a whoring after it, which thing became a snare unto Gideon, and to his house. Thus Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more, and the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his house. And Gideon had 70,000 of his body begotten. For he had many wives. He had a lot of kids. And his concubine that was in Shechem, she also bare him a son whose name is called Abimelech. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father. And Ophrah and the Abiezrites. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, the children of Israel turned again, and went whoring after Balaam, and after Baal-berith their god. Again. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel. That's sad. And, when we read, chapters like this in the Bible, it shows you how quickly, people can be ungrateful to the goodness of God. Because we get the reason why God chose this 300, and it's quite obvious. This was God's proof that this was His doing, and what we see is pretty much God did it with the 300. They weren't heavily armed. They were men that were bold. They weren't of the 22,000 that was of their fighting force. And guess what? The people after they overcame, the Midianites, the Ishmaelites, said, why you didn't come with us? You guys got the victory. Why you didn't take us with us? Like, boy, if you would have came with us, the story would have been different. You guys were whoring after idols. You guys were afraid. This is God's doing, that the Midianites were delivered unto your hands. And these 2 kings were slain of nobility. But guess what? Just like us, they didn't pass that down to their children, and some of them, as soon as this great ruler and leader of Gibeon passed away, just like with Joshua, just like with Deborah, just like the many judges that God rose up, like we see in chapter 1 and 2 of Judges. God rose up many judges to sway Israel back into His hands. But yet, when they died, they returned to the same idols that oppressed them. After 40 years of peace, they left God. Okay, we're going to end on that note. Pretty much there are many messages we can get out of that. And one I want to bring out is fear God and don't fear man. And if God is for us, who can be against us? When you got God on your side, it doesn't matter what the opposition looks like or how strong they are. At the end of the day, when you're on God's side, all the enemies of God will fail and crumble. So when you're in this life and you're doing your work for Christ, though it may seem bleak, though it may seem that it's in vain, fear not what man can do to your body, but fear the one that can kill your body and your soul in hell. For fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge, and he who wins souls is wise. All right, we're going to close on that note. So any comments before we close out? Any questions?
I guess just a small one. Um, it just makes you wonder, like, how differently things will look. Like, say, like when it comes to, our nation and, going to battle and wars and such. Like, it just makes you wonder how differently things would be if um the people put their trust in God. Because, like, you go through history and such like that, you kind of have like these wars that span on for years and years and years and years. And it's like, they trusted, if, people trusted in God, like, just imagine, like, how much more quickly, conflicts would be resolved and such like that. But, we know, how these, the leaders, are, because not only do they not, put their trust in God, but in, the power of their men and their technology and such like that. But, who knows, what their true intentions are. They can maybe setting out for a good cause, but could have, wicked intentions behind what they do.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. It's definitely a sad thought when we look at our history, when we look at mankind. We see how merciful God has been towards us, but we tend to side with, the very thing that oppresses us. And, when you say that, I think about today how many of these cults and many of the young people in, the American culture, the Western society, how the freedoms and liberties that we have today is because of our Christian faith, of why we're not so oppressed. But yet and still, who do we blame for, the many problems of this world? We blame God for evil. We blame God, for the deaths that, have happened. We blame God for slavery. And because we like being whores, because we love idolatry, and we simply don't want to be under the guardianship, the authority of God. We don't want to bow down to him. That's one thing that I know me and you artists and Voice, Swish, and Kira, we come across quite commonly when we evangelize. They might think I want to tolerate God, but why do I have to bow down to him? Why do I have to worship him? Can I do good without God? And the answer is no. Even if you are ignorantly in rebellion of God and you do good things, you're worshiping the creature rather than the creator. You want to be God. You want to be in that seat of power. You don't want to be humble and thank the one that gave you the ability to do what you do. Just like Satan. You want to sin above, the mountains of the north. You want to be like the Most High yourself instead of thanking him. And that mentality that we see with each of these generations that were under these judges, God rose them up. Israel was rebellious. Israel cried out, and this is the same trend of their fathers in Egypt is the same thing we see, in Midian and in the generation of Gideon. It doesn't change. Mankind has not changed. That's why with us, with our house, we got to serve God. We have to train up our children in the way they should go so they won't depart from it. All right, we're going to close on that note. Love you guys. If God's willing, we will be back next week on Monday. God bless. The CGU is brought to you by the
Oh,
Bible.
the Bible.
All right, until next time.